The geniuses behind mathematics, you figure they were mostly boring and quiet, harmless, the kind of people who are very kind and iron their socks on Mondays. Not even close. These very smart people were messy, obsessive, heartbroken, and maybe even a little insane, because behind every equation you were forced to memorize, there was somebody who cried, sweated, and in some cases even bled for it. Somebody who lost everything for an idea the world wasn't ready for. We like to picture them calm, in control. Chalk dust, quiet libraries, tidy little lives. But the truth is a lot louder than that, and a lot sadder. The tidy genius who has it all figured out, that guy is mostly a myth. The real ones were coming apart at the seams. So let me tell you what you've actually stumbled into. This isn't a boring calculus class. You won't be quizzed and you won't need your calculator out. But make no mistake, we do a different kind of math here. I know everyone loves poring over equations and quantum theorems, but here we'll get into the lives of the people who came up with them, and the side of their history that is too dramatic to make it into our textbooks. The stuff your teacher either didn't know or didn't dare put on a worksheet. So the next time you see a formula on the board, yes, you might understand the question, but you'll also remember the wild stories behind how it came to be. You'll leave each video entertained and a little smarter. Let me show you what I mean. If you're a bit of a nerd, you've probably heard of the famous Evariste Galois, the 20-year-old French kid whose math is the reason no regular Joe can hack your bank account. He basically discovered group theory and then died the next morning in a pistol duel. And TMZ wasn't around back then, so nobody actually knows why the duel happened. Sources say a love triangle, a political hit, maybe even a staged suicide, but search him up and you'll find everyone fixates on the same exaggerated myth. The frantic scribbling of "I have not time" all over his journal the night before he died, except it only appears once, next to a single unfinished theorem, not panic notes across every margin of the page. What we do know for sure is that what he wrote became the branch of mathematics that now underpins particle physics, cryptography, and the security of every message you send. There's no way you're yawning. Most people don't even remember their dreams. But a self-taught clerk in colonial India, living in poverty, must have taken a lucid amount of melatonin or something, because he claimed a goddess whispered equations to him in his dreams. Her name was Namagiri. He'd wake up, and there they'd be. Whole formulas, fully formed, like she'd slipped him the answers to a test nobody else had even been handed. He mailed a letter full of impossible formulas to one of the most famous mathematicians in the world, who nearly threw it out, convinced it was the work of a crackhead. It wasn't. Srinivasa Ramanujan turned out to be one of the greatest minds who ever lived. He'd had almost no formal training, actually flunked out of college because he refused to study anything that wasn't math. And still he filled notebooks with thousands of theorems, most with no proof at all, just correct. Mathematicians are still working through those notebooks today. He wrote down one formula for calculating pi that produces 8 correct digits with every single term. The same formula, by the way, we now use to understand black holes. Dreams do come true, but for some, nightmares do too. Like the woman Einstein called the most significant genius of her field, forced to teach for years without pay, without credit, and under a man's name because the laws wouldn't allow hers. People crossed oceans to learn from her anyway, and the theorem she quietly wrote is holding up modern physics to this very day. It explains how and why energy can't just appear out of nowhere or vanish into nothing. After dedicating her career to a country and an institution that had already made her fight for every scrap of recognition, in the end she was thrown out overnight. Then there was a logician who was the first to, somehow, find out that math can never be finished. He proved that math itself has permanent blind spots, that there is no perfect system that proves every truth. Imagine that. For thousands of years, humans felt safe in absolute certainty that everything could, in theory, be proven. And this dude just shattered that reality. He'd done it before he was even 25. Rewrote what every mathematician on Earth thought was possible, then slowly went quiet. Then starved himself to death. Convinced he was being poisoned. He would only eat food his wife had tasted first. So when she got sick and landed in the hospital, he simply stopped. He weighed 65 pounds the day he died. The one man alive who could see the hidden limits of logic itself, undone by a fear he couldn't reason his way out of. If his mind could prove something that life-changing, what finally broke it? A few decades later, the war hero who saved millions of lives and was destroyed by the very country he saved. While bombs were falling, he sat in a hut in the English countryside and cracked a code the Nazis swore was unbreakable, the machine feeding secret orders to their entire war effort. Historians think what he did shortened the whole war by years, and almost as a side effect, he sketched out the blueprint for every computer and phone you have ever touched. So how did they thank him? A few years after the war, they dragged him into a courtroom. not for anything he'd done wrong, but for who he loved, and made him choose between prison and chemicals that would poison his own body. He was dead at 41. Even a few years ago, a modern genius who solved a problem worth $1 million and simply walked away. It was a puzzle that had beaten the entire field for 100 years. He cracked it, posted the answer on the internet for free, and then, when they offered him the million plus the single highest honor in all of mathematics, he said no to all of it, turned it down, closed the door, and disappeared from public life almost completely. Left $1 million just sitting there. But these aren't just fun facts, they're the whole point, because there's a pattern here, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. The same brilliance of these minds are often chained to obsession, isolation, and a quiet, relentless suffering that we never got to acknowledge. That thin line between mastermind and madness, the strange psychology of genius itself, is the thread stitched through everything we do here. This is where genius comes with a price tag, where the numbers finally start to make sense, where the drama behind them comes into focus. This is only the beginning, and there's so much more to come.